Hi, my friends, and welcome to another stream of Adobe Live. I am your host, Kieron Lewis, a designer from London. And on today's stream, we have the illustrator and muralist, Sydney Prusso. Sydney, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to jump into it. I can already see behind you your murals are there, so
Oh yeah.
I'm getting a flavor of the design of the stream already. I'm loving it. And we've got our lovely friends in the chat. Let's say hello to some folks who are in there. We've got Bruce, Katrina, Jack. As usual, my friends, any comments you want to have for Sydney, please put those in the chat if it's on the YouTube or the Behance account. I will do my very best to share that directly with Sydney whilst she's in the flow of it. And on a final reminder as well, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us at Adobe Live to catch up on the latest streams and all things that are good. So, Sydney, this is all about you today. Would you like to introduce yourself to our lovely audience?
Totally. Yeah, I'm so excited. Like you said, yeah, this mural is pretty much going to get us a good sneak peek of what we're going to be working on today. Although we're going to keep it digital, but I'll show you the
Cool.
process for digital murals. Basically, it kind of goes, the process starts digitally, and then I make a mock-up for the client, and that is the point where it turns over to being painted. So yeah, a little bit about me. I'm an illustrator and mural artist. I live in near Tampa, Florida. So you might recognize me for my sort of botanical, dreamy, very 2D flat style, which
Mm,
definitely comes from my background in graphic design.
cool.
And I specialize in creating custom murals. Um, and I also commercially license my illustrations for wallpaper and other home goods. And so I love
Nice.
getting like beauty and drama and meaning into homes and businesses to get them the attention that I feel like they deserve. But my
Yeah.
passion truly lies in transforming spaces, especially when I get to collab with interior designers. And you'll kind of get a
Mm.
sense for that here when I'm showing you the space that I'm working with and how I kind of work with the colors.
Nice. Oh, Sydney, I feel like you're teasing us with this examples of what we're going to look forward to for today's stream. I'm super excited. And again, my friends, any comments you have in the chat for Sydney, design background, where she's based, work she's working on, or again, any tips that you see when she's in the process of designing, please do get those in the chat. So, Sydney, when you're ready, feel free to jump straight into the program.
Totally. All right. So kicking it off over here, I've got my canvas here. And what I want to first show you guys is when I first start working with a client, I always make them a mood board. And so this
Mm.
client wanted to do a mural for their bedroom, and they wanted it to be based off of their wedding bouquet. So something to kind of preserve the memory with a mural that matches their bedroom colors. So I just moved the screen over here to the mood board that I would show the client here. So on
Mm.
the left side here, this is the photo they wanted me to use for reference. And over in the center here, we've got the client's bedroom. And then over here, I've made a bit of a color palette that's based off
Mm.
of the bedroom itself. Like I mentioned, I like working with the colors in the space. I find that really
Mm.
fun. So here we've
I see.
uh, got some rosy tones, some browns, and a little bit of beige there. But the client said that they were not married to keeping the wall color the same
Nice.
underneath, but overall wanted to keep it kind of light.
Okay.
So then we got a couple other visuals here too.
Mm.
This is a design I created. And then in terms of color palette inspiration, I found this photo just to get a good idea of some florals that are more tied into the colors they want.
Mm.
Um, and this one as well. Yeah.
Nice. Just on that, I like that you've because we're always used to sort of seeing mood boards before we jump into the project, but I'm always curious when I see the amount that people tend to have on the board. So obviously you keep it quite clean and quite. I can already see in a bit of a grid-like format, which is quite
Oh
short and
yeah.
sweet, rather
I
than
tend to think
too
that
much.
the less is more is always a good approach for a mood board because when you have too many
Mm.
elements, I think you're maybe promising too much or it's
Yeah.
you're kind of over promising and you're always going to under deliver if you have way too much on the mood board. The
Mm.
less you have, the better, especially if it's your own work on the mood board. You know,
Mm.
it's not always going to be able to work out. Sometimes the client wants a very specific thing and you're like, okay, we'll pull a little bit of that in.
Mm.
But for the most part, yeah, keep it pretty simple.
Nice. The joys of a creative overthinking, my friends. We can
Oh
all
yeah.
relate to that, I'm sure. Cool.
Absolutely. So yeah, then we have down here just the names of the flowers that they want to incorporate, which I went and Googled and all that. So
Cool.
yeah, so popping it back over to our board here.
Mm.
This wall here, I measured it out. Actually, I'll zoom in there first to show you. So I measured first the width of this wall and then the height of this wall. And then what I do is I take that ratio and I just make sure that my artboard is the same ratio. So it doesn't matter if it's the same size. Like, do not make your artboard like 119 inches by, I think it was like 136. Like, don't do that. I think what I
Yeah.
tend to do is I'll just put a 0 after the pixel. So like, if it's 196 inches wide, then I'll
Mm.
put, 1,196. What, I don't know if I just did that right, but
No, I have to think
um,
about it for a second as well.
I
Don't
put
worry.
it. I'll put an
Added a zero.
0 at the end. Um,
Gotcha.
in this case, I made the artboard extra big just because, just in case I wanted to make this into a print after. So I kept the
Mm.
ratio, and I think it's like about 20 inches wide right now. So it's a little bit, it's pretty big. But you know, you never know. It's always easy to downsize than it is to
Yeah.
scale up. So.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I went and did the sketch first, just because this took me all day yesterday, and we don't have that kind of time.
Very cool. Very detailed. I love
Yes.
it.
So we've got a nice sketch going. So what I'm going to do
Mm.
first is I'm just going to go in and I'm going to get the outlines going for all these flowers and just get a good base.
Mm.
You can also see here that I've got a color palette based off
Wow.
of what we have here. And
Mm.
this color palette, just doing this took me about 5 minutes. So, you know, just wanted to get an idea of how everything would look with the background. But
Mm.
you can see I really just scribble it on there just to see if it's gonna work.
You could have told me a day and I would genuinely have believed you, actually, to be fair, because it looks so cool. It does look
Thank
really, really
you.
cool.
All right. So we'll go in. I'm gonna go underneath this layer and kind of turn down the opacity of that right there. Okay.
Cool.
So I'm going to
Whilst,
use
so
that.
whilst you're
All
on the
right.
flow of that, we've got folks that are sharing their experiences of mural design as well, which is nice. We've got Jack who said they've never done a mural before. This looks like it could be fun, but they've done a large scale on a transit bus wrap. Wow.
Oh,
There we go, my friends. Keep sharing those experiences. We'd love to hear them.
never done a bus wrap, but that'd be super fun.
Mm.
Especially because, I mean, I assume you don't actually have to paint that, do you? Sounds
I'm
like
not sure.
it's like a vinyl thing.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know in the chat, Jack. I guess with dimensions and the awkwardness of like bus like doors cutting in, that could always be quite awkward, but the joys of printers, maybe it helps us out.
It's always fun, especially in the summer.
Yeah,
Just like
definitely.
take me out of the heat for a minute.
So you kind of just going over the lines now, I can see, just sort of tracing them, getting a feel for it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go over the main lines. I'm gonna leave the details for later, just,
Mm.
you know, for the sake of time, just in case. You know, time kind of flies, like you said on here. So
It does fly. We have said that before. It's yeah, we're in the flow of it, and then before you know it, boom.
but yeah, so just gonna get the main outline. You can see I have all these, you know, little details in here. I'm not gonna get those
Mm.
till a little bit later.
Nice. And a quick question with that. So that drawing we're seeing now on screen, did you sort of draw it and then scan them in, or did you just kind of like draw that as a pencil tool via like a digital on the app? What was your
Yeah, so I just used the
process?
pencil tool here, right over
Cool.
in pencil.
Nice.
We just, oh, well, you get it.
Yeah. Do you ever take it back old school and do like, I mean, do you ever do paint? Do you explore paint? Is it more digital? What's your kind of work flow, as it were?
I haven't taken it old school in a long time.
Hmm.
Man, why
Old
is there
school's the right
not?
term, isn't it? I think old school would be, yeah, it's not too old, is it? Not sure. Before the the analog days, I'm basically mean that's what it is.
Yeah, like what I'll do is sometimes just have like a very rudimentary sketch on in a sketchbook, but it won't be anything like this. It'll literally just be scribbles of a shape And that's typically how I start out, is just like extremely rudimentary scribbles of a shape, mostly
Mm,
just to get the idea of how something will fit in a space, because the majority of it I can see in my mind, and that's really all I need to know to
mm.
start off.
And also sketchbooks, I find it's just for maybe our eyes only, perhaps, because I feel like it's like the method to our madness is in this little black book, and then yeah, no one really sees that but you. So if it works for you
Absolutely.
and you get it, then all good.
No, some people like put a lot of pressure on themselves to have these perfectly beautiful sketchbooks, and it's just never been me. It could never
Just
be
the just the
me.
cut, just the cover, maybe the cover and back is fine, and then inside, don't even bother look, just
No,
lock and
don't
key.
even look. It's just scribbles. If you look inside, you would never know that I'm a creative person. It would just, I don't know, it would look like a crazy
Oh,
person.
that'd be awesome. It'd be awesome, I'm sure. Uh,
Mostly notes, actually. It's just like scribbles and then like arrows being like, this is supposed to be blank.
mm. It'd be great to know if any creatives watching now as well. What's your kind of process? Do you tend to jump on screen? Do you sort of draw out first in a notebook and then scan them in? For any illustrators that are watching, that is, let us know in the chat. What's your process, and I'll share that with Sydney.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
I can also see in the chat as well, folks are sort of sharing where they're streaming from as well, which is nice. We've got Chicago in the house, NY, Washington, obviously London being over here, and then Tampa is where you're based as well. Is that right? You were saying, Sydney?
Yep.
Nice. What's the creative scene in Tampa saying? Is it full of murals if I was to walk through by the beach
Actually, yeah.
or yeah?
So Tampa
Okay.
and St. Pete are really close, and St. Pete has this mural festival called Shine Mural Festival, which is
Mm,
really cool. I got to participate in it a couple years ago, which was so
nice.
awesome.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah, St.
bet.
Pete's like huge supporter of the arts. Tampa's got a
Cool.
bunch of murals as well. So, and I didn't even
Okay.
know that when I moved down here,
Mm.
that it was such a, big supporter of the arts in the area. But I think it was perfect.
That's the key, right? I guess when you move into an area, if you're creative, it's kind of getting a feel for the environment, the community, and knowing, I feel like every maybe community has some sort of creative scene somewhere. You just have to maybe find it if it's not so in your face.
Yeah,
So yeah, always curious about that.
I would say always look up festivals in your area for murals if you're looking for that kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
I always say that the mural festival was one of the biggest things that changed my business. So, like, when people ask me,
Very cool.
like, how do you get started? I'm like, apply to local mural festivals.
You heard it here first, my friends. That's top tips from Sydney. So
Yeah.
yeah, get researching and check things out. It's a good shout. Very good shout. Do you find as well? I'm quite curious. Like I was thinking about this before we came on the stream. I feel like patience would be needed within your line of work, especially if you're working on a bigger scale. I mean, patience across the whole creative space, yes, massively, but maybe more so what you do in the detail. Am I right in saying that? What's maybe not? I don't know.
Yes.
Mm,
Patience and the ability to problem solve on the fly is a
mm.
huge thing. I would say basically every single mural I've done, there's always been just like something that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how to work like this specific type of boom lift with YouTube, or like um, figure out,
Nice.
what to do about, this paint color doesn't quite match. I have to finagle it. There's
Mm,
always something.
mm.
So definitely the ability to work on the fly and not
Nice.
not feel too freaked out about that. That it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have a perfect mural site.
Of course. And to be fair, I guess as creators, we're almost perfectionists, right? So even when it is pretty sharp and the client's happy, we're always deep down going to find maybe one or two little niggly bits that we think, oh my God, it's massive. But actually, maybe to the naked eye, it's probably not that much of a big deal. It's just the nature
Absolutely.
of our work, which is good.
That's another thing I always say. You got to step back and look at it,
Mm,
because you could get pulled into just like a corner of your work on a
mm,
huge wall trying to make sure that it's like the lines are perfect and so crispy.
mm.
Don't just like, even if you have to set a timer, I've done that before where I won't allow
Nice.
myself to work on any specific section for too long.
That's healthy. I think you're the first person I've actually ever heard to say that they have like they time themselves in certain elements, which probably keeps you sane as well, right? I imagine if you're in a big project. Um, Very cool.
Yeah.
I've got to ask as well. I mean, it'd be whilst you're in the flow, obviously, of doing what you're doing now. Tell us about your background. I mean, are you self-taught? Did you study what you're doing now? What's your background in this?
So I went to school for graphic design. So a little bit different than what I'm doing right now, but not by
Mm,
much, honestly. Um, but before I went to school in to college for graphic design, I really always loved painting and drawing growing up. So that was always a part of my life. But I think I didn't have any kind of family members in the creative field. So it was kind of, you know, go get a practical job kind of thing. You know how it
We've
is.
heard that before. Of course, we've all heard that before, right?
Yeah,
Be a
I'm
lawyer or
sure
something. Yeah.
everyone's heard that. And so we kind of settled on let's go into graphic design. That'll be the
Mm,
practical trail for the creative field.
mm,
Um, and yeah, so I was a graphic designer basically all through college. And then right after college, I got a job as a graphic designer for, I want to say a year and a half. A
mm.
year? Honestly, I don't even remember, but I just immediately it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy working in an office. It was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
I loved my coworkers, shout out. But
For anyone's watching, I love that. Just like a disclaimer. Yeah.
no, it just wasn't for me. I knew I needed to be working with my hands. I was just too antsy all the time in
Mm,
front of a screen. I don't know if you guys could,
mm.
for some reason, just all of a sudden, every lawnmower in the neighborhood has decided to just start mowing the lawn
They knew
right
Adobe Live was
outside.
happening.
Oh my
We can't
God.
hear
Can you hear
anything. I think
that?
it's
I'm
pretty.
so sorry.
No. We're good for it. I think we're. Well, let us know in the chat. I mean, I'm only talking on my behalf, but it's you sound pretty clear.
Okay,
Sound pretty
good.
clear.
Yeah. If you hear me pausing, it's because I'm like, oh my God, why have they all
As always the
decided to
case, right?
be?
They had one job. Don't
Yeah,
do it before and after the stream. Well, that's
absolutely.
cool to know about your background. I mean, the reason why I asked as well is because, I mean, we do a lot of these streams, and the amount of creators we have that have various routes of how they got into what they're doing. I think we find quite fascinating. But for anyone who's watching and maybe not necessarily went down the route of actually studying it, I mean, the beauty of self-taught, right? That's why when you're watching Adobe Live or you're doing tutorials online, it's the idea of doing stuff on the fly or because you want to, which is nice.
Totally.
So yeah, there's various ways of getting into it, right? The creative space, which is cool. I can confirm when Jack mentioned about the vinyl on the bus. Yeah, it definitely was a vinyl, not hand painted, because that will take a while. It's like, are they paying you enough to be painting a bus? I mean,
That'd be
it would be
tricky.
cool. It would be tricky.
Really cool
And also
though.
the brush, yeah, the thickness of brushes. I can only imagine what you would. It's like an itinerary of different brushes.
Yeah.
And what's your setup? I mean, obviously we're working on the iPad, is that correct today? Or
Yep.
tablet, I should say. Yeah, okay.
I
What's your
have
kind of setup?
the 13-inch iPad Pro, and people tend to ask me, like, should I invest in the Pro? Is it better? I had a friend who also had just an iPad from eBay that was
Mm,
a smaller one. She loved that too, still uses it to this day. So it's really whatever you like.
of course. And I guess it's the idea of the beauty is now is that everything can be quite remote, right? So you can be working literally on the go or on the train or whatever. Obviously not driving because that'd be dangerous, but there's various ways of how you could be on transportation whilst designing on the go. And also I can see in the chat, I've got confirmation, Sydney, in case you're worried, that definitely no one can hear the lawnmower. So you're good for
Oh,
it. We've got Bruce.
amazing. Okay.
Bruce said I can't hear anything.
I
And then
swear.
Robert has said, yeah, there's a lawnmower filter on the mic. There we go.
Fantastic. No,
We're good for
I
it.
swear to God, there was literally every single one that ever existed just hanging out outside.
You know what's gonna happen now, right? Now that you mentioned it, we're all listening out intently, hopefully for
Yeah.
what you're saying, but also for the lawnmower. But no, we're good. We're good.
All right.
And again, this is probably a nice time to kind of mention we're coming up to that sort of half hour point, or half an hour into the stream, I should say. So for anyone who has just joined or on YouTube or Behance, get those lovely questions for Sydney and her design process in the chat.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, Sydney, actually. I'm curious. I can see obviously you're going over the lines. Do you ever, when you've done a sketch and you scan it and then you trace over, do you find that sometimes from what you've drawn, it doesn't actually marry up in your mind what you originally thought? So do you kind of got off piece a bit? And like I'm seeing obviously you're doing every detail of the petal, and I'm thinking if you ever thought maybe a petal could be folded at a different angle, would you then maybe, or do you keep exactly to what you've drawn for sanity purposes?
Yeah, so that's kind of why I mentioned this sketch took all day yesterday, is that it's
Mm.
not usually just one sketch. It's like um it starts out as a giant scribble and then the scribble gets a little bit more visually legible and then it's kind of fine-tuned and fine-tuned. And
Mm.
each time I go over it, it'll be, just that much more different. Like, okay, this petal sits this way now, testing out different things. So yeah, totally.
Mm. Nice. We've got a question here actually. When you're in a good place to, you're in a good place to do it,
Yeah.
talk about it. Yeah, awesome. So we got a question from Bruce who said, so not to get ahead of myself, but does Sydney use doodle grids? Always wondered about how mural artists get them to scale. I see in some of my city getting on those tall cranes. Interesting.
Yeah. So if you don't know what a doodle grid is, it
Mm,
is when the muralist will scribble random stuff all over the wall just to get spatially something visual. It's kind of the equivalent of making a grid, but you don't have to be perfect with it. It's just big old
mm,
scribbles, write the alphabet, make emojis, whatever, write your name.
cool.
And then what you do is you'll take a picture of it and kind of transpose your design using Photoshop as if it were a grid. So you can kind of say, oh, okay, the head of this giraffe goes where I drew this star.
Mm,
Um, and I know that that works out really nice for a lot of people. I haven't tried it out, but it's something that I would definitely try out if need be. I know that
mm,
with larger murals, like where you wouldn't be able to use a projector,
mm,
that's definitely a solution that a lot of people will do. Or in tight corners, just stuff where I prefer to use a projector. It just makes me
mm.
feel like I'm not going to mess it up. Yeah, I would try it out.
Yeah, nice. Do you tend to get, I mean, that's because I guess it's I don't think we've actually, well, I personally haven't hosted someone who does mural designs before actually. And I've done quite a few streams, so it's quite like refreshing and awesome to sort of see it, in the flesh. Do you ever get quite nervous when you're working on a bigger scale? I mean, I guess it's for any project, but obviously if you're working potentially maybe in a client office or any sort of studio space, because you don't want to obviously damage the wall or whatever. Do you have
Yeah,
does that
I
nerves kind of
always
sink in, or are you just like
I
you're
always
so
get
with the flow
nervous.
now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think the nerves are inevitable. Like you just have to
Mm,
do it scared.
yeah. Ride the wave, right? Of the adrenaline of
Yeah.
yeah.
And I kind of like, I mean, I don't know, I've done bungee jumping and all that, so
Oh,
I kind of
fair.
like all that. But a
Just
lot of people
casually
I
dropping
could
that in.
understand why you wouldn't want to do that. But no, you got to just do it scared. There's no other
I
way.
mean, I think I'd rather do a mural design than a bungee jump. But to be fair, that being said, who knows? I mean, what kind of maybe you can mix it up in a few years' time from now. But wow, what an
Well, if
experience.
you're bungee jumping, there's people there to be like, no, no, I've got you. We rigged you up. We know what we're doing. But if you're doing a mural, you're the only one who's supposed to know what you're doing. And if you don't, then that's it.
So are you putting the fear factor pretty much on the same scale of like bungee jumping with mural design? I love that. I feel like there's
It
it's pretty
can
much in the
be.
same ballpark. Okay, cool.
It
I
certainly can be.
yeah. For anyone who's nervous watching this and thinking I can't do it, it's like there we go. Of course you can do it. You can do anything if you put your mind to it, or including bungee jumping.
Yeah.
We got a question from Hudson, who I think may have just popped in the room, who's asked, "What are we working on now?" Would you like to maybe talk us through for anyone who's just popped in now what we're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm working on a floral mural design that would be going on a client's bedroom wall. And it's here, I'll show you here on the mood board. Sorry to make you dizzy. Here's my mood board
Good.
here. We've got the bedroom wall, and it's of their wedding bouquet here. And it's a variation of it. So we're matching it to their interiors.
Very cool.
And so I also want to call out this outlining is not typically a part of my process. I typically work with darker colors. And so I'm kind of
Mm.
challenging myself today. Um, so I usually do like on a dark background here, in which case it would just be the color of the flower, which would be a lighter color, and then the details in varying like 3 tones. So like you can see on the wall behind me,
Mm.
got my dark background, and then not a whole lot of like outlining per se. Um, so I'm challenging myself here. Because it's a
Nice.
lighter color, the outlines are necessary to
Mm.
kind of distinguish because they're kind of lighter flowers as well.
Mm. Actually, that brings quite nice to another question I was curious to know. So you mentioned the word challenges. Do you, as a particular challenge that you face quite regularly within your type of work or line of work, or anything that you're maybe working on now to try and get better at? Just for anyone tuning in if they're curious as well.
Um, any particular challenges? I think it's one challenge is like every client's going to be different and have a different idea of what they want in their space. So a big challenge, and it's always fun as well to try to make sure you're accommodating to what their needs are. Um,
Mm.
and making sure that you're really actually thinking about what the client's needs are and not just what you want to make. But there's obviously there should be a marriage of those two things.
Of course. Mm. Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Especially if for anyone maybe watching and quite new to maybe dealing with clients by themselves, if they're freelance or stepping into it, it's a bit of a learning on the job, right? In a sense where that client relationship and understanding how much you want to share or how much you feel like you can say. But yeah, I think it's, you know, the more you work with clients, the more you feel comfortable, the more they feel comfortable, and you can produce some good work together.
Totally.
Just on that, in terms of clients, I mean, just name dropping it, but is there any particular clients that you would like to maybe work with, or anyone that you never know, they could be in the chat tuning in, they're thinking, oh, shoot my shot, particular mural
Well,
design for a client?
like I mentioned, I love working with interior designers, which I
Mm.
mean, there might be a couple here listening.
Shout
Hey,
out.
creatives, what's up? I love working with them. It's just so much fun. I don't have any background in interior design, but
Mm.
my favorite thing to do is to totally transform a space. So when I get to team up with another creative who's in interior design, I just think that's
Mm.
like so cool because then we can tag team the project and totally make the client just like, wow.
Just blow them away. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's very cool. That's very, and it's nice that you can kind of collaborate and sort of complement each other's skills, right? As well. That's the beauty of, you know, working for yourself and freelancing, where you can kind of, you know, work other folks you not necessarily tend to always work with if you're in a, you know, maybe full time in space. So that's a
absolutely.
really cool thing to do.
In the graphic design world, I never
Mm.
would have like been able to collaborate with interior designers.
Yeah, very cool. We've got a question here from Mara Dani, I'm saying correctly. And they've asked, hey, how do you choose colors considering a lot of factors that might come into play, like lighting and the type of wall?
Yeah, so the client will always send me a photo of the wall, and then I can kind of gauge based on the surroundings, what kind of colors we want to work with.
Mm.
Lighting wise, that's a good question. With the photo, you can kind of tell what the lighting they're working with is. Um, and what was the other one? Lighting and just the colors in general,
Lighting
was that?
and the type of the wall, the type of wall, I guess maybe the material
Oh,
potentially of what it's made out of, maybe.
yeah, the type of wall doesn't usually inform the color choices. However, I will say if it's a tough wall like
Mm.
stucco, I will probably try to limit using orange and yellow just because those colors need a lot of layers, and I
Mm.
just don't want
Interesting.
to do that on stucco.
Fair. Fair. I love the honesty.
But it works.
Interesting.
If you need to do it, you can
Yeah.
do it. It's just like a pain.
I get that. That's a great question, actually. Really interesting. Especially, yeah, there's factors where maybe necessarily well, you would if you're in that space and you're professional, but maybe if you're just starting out, it's factors that, you know, it wouldn't come to mind straight away, i.e., the lighting or the type of wall. So yeah,
Yeah,
great question. Keep those questions coming, my friends.
totally.
I'm always curious as well. This is perhaps maybe not too off piece, but when you're designing, are you and you're in the flow of it and say, I don't know, you've got a deadline in the next 2, 3 hours. Are you designing with music? Are you designing complete silence? What is your potion to kind of get you through that remaining hour?
I'll usually have like some kind of podcast going, audiobook or music, but sometimes it'll just
Sure.
be one of those days where I'll be like, have I just been sitting in silence all day? You ever have those?
Of course, you're just stuck in the chair like Homer Simpson imprint of like, yeah, you haven't moved for the past
Yeah.
4 hours. It's like, yeah. Um, yeah,
What
that's
about
not
you? Do you
healthy. You need
listen
to.
to music podcasts?
Well, I mean, I've got to plug it and say I listen to Adobe Live in the background, right? That's very
Of
professional of me.
course.
But to be fair, if I'm not just listening to Adobe Live, yeah, a good Spotify playlist. I've got playlists for various moods depending on how intense the project is, right? Yeah, it's gonna get you through it. Let us know in the chat. What do you folks do? Are you, because again, it's always interesting to know how people kind of get in the zone and switch up. And to be fair, I mentioned watching Adobe Live in the background, but you'd be surprised how many folks do tend to have just have it there because it's nice to kind of have people working in the background whilst you're also working. So it's not too cheesy to mention it, but let us know in the chat what you guys do when you're in the flow of working.
Yeah.
I can see in the chat the awesome Jack had just put in the Adobe podcast we have as well. There we go. So that's a even better one to mention as well. So we've got a link into there. So
Nice.
you're forever being fulfilled of creativity, creative stuff. So you can't have no excuse to not be involved. So yeah, there we go. Just casually plugging it. We've got a question for you, Sydney, as well, from Bruce, who said, so Sydney, when you have a new client, is this what you do when you're talking with the client? Do you have an iPad in hand, or are you traditionally using pencil and paper, or does it start with a pick?
So from the get-go,
Hmm.
before they're a client, I will just do the mood board. So no kind of, you don't want to do any kind of design work before any deposits down or anything like that. Um, so just the mood board at first, but then after they've approved the mood board and we're on the same page, we're both good to go,
Nice.
deposits in, all that, then I will do the process similar to this, where
Hmm.
I am, doing my sketch and then I do my design. And then what I will do is maybe this is a little bit different than a lot of others is I won't send a sketch and I won't send half finished work. I will only send a fully final mock-up on their wall so they can see what it looks like. And I think
Hmm.
that has reduced the amount of revisions that I get. Um,
Okay.
Especially if you're working with people who aren't in a creative field, it's, sometimes a little bit hard for them to translate just a
Hmm.
sketch or a digital piece to what it would look like in real life.
Hmm. I
And the
get
more
that.
you can translate that for them in the initial process, the less panic and input that they
Hmm.
might feel like they need to have.
That's a really great point, and I feel like that can definitely translate across various other disciplines as well. It's like, especially if the client isn't necessarily from a creative background or space, where like you made it really clear that you kind of have to do an execution, i.e., a mock-up, to sort of get them thinking this is what it would look like once it's done. And I don't know, perhaps a good way of saying it, but I always call it almost like spoon feeding a little bit the client, depending on the type of client. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But you know what I mean. Just so they might need a bit of extra TLC to really get what the vision's going to be. And that's
No, yeah,
okay. Maybe it's healthy to do
absolutely.
that.
No, I think that's totally our job is to like we're the visionaries that they're hiring, so it's our job to
Mm.
make sure that they can see our vision because like I mean, I'm not going to expect anyone to look inside my brain and understand what's going on. Like,
If we can't look inside your Moleskine book, I don't think we're going to get a chance to definitely look inside your brain. So
yeah,
we're good for it. No, interesting. It's nice to know, kind of get a feel for how you work in the client world as well. I think that's why we do these beautiful Adobe Live sessions, so folks can get an idea of seeing you design live, but also know how you operate in the client world as well. Especially for
totally.
folks who are tuning in and very new to that space.
What about you? Do you have a mock-up process of sorts?
Graphic designer, editor. Yeah, we love a good mock-up. Making books. So yeah, the old mock-up will definitely come into play. To be fair, a bit like you, I try not to show maybe half done work, or at least the very, very early stages, because you want them to really get a feel for what the final thing will be. So to answer that question, so basically, yeah, I will do mock-ups. But usually when we've got a few chapters maybe done in a book, just so folks can get
Mhm.
an idea of how that will look as a spread, maybe. So yeah, and it'd be wrong
Nice.
to not obviously flag and to plug. Of course, we obviously have awesome stocks on the Adobe stock as well. So there we go. I wouldn't be a good host if I never mentioned that, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get a link in the chat anyway. But yeah, mock-ups will save your life, especially for anyone who's new to the creative space. I don't know if you find it as well, Sydney, but when you do a mock-up, even for yourself, it's just nice to sort of see it in situ and think,
Ugh, it
actually, that
changes
gives you an
everything
idea.
sometimes.
Massively.
And for those who have just joined, I'll do a mock-up of this on the wall at the end here. So you can kind of see that process.
Nice.
So depending on, I know, time's going quickly. So I think all these tiny little flower details down, up and down, I might skip them for
Mm.
now and see if we can put them in the end, but I'm
Cool.
just gonna go ahead and see if I can start filling this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna duplicate the layer just in case I mess anything up. Um, But so you can see I have my colors that I just kind of loosely sketched in. I usually have
Mm.
a light, medium, dark, and I start with the medium. So gonna go ahead and drop in medium here. And then it might color the whole screen, in which case I gotta find the little spot
I hate when that
where,
happens. Yeah. Where's that little thing? Just like, yeah, like a
yeah,
ninja
you're like, oh my
hiding
God,
in
I'm
plain
going
sight.
crazy.
I've got to say, there's something quite fun though about using that tool where you just kind of like paint, just like old school paint. I don't know, I find it quite fun. It's very refreshing to see, basically.
When you
Just like
just
paint
plop
bucket.
it, paint
Yeah,
bucket.
I feel like, yeah, I was getting like a 10-year-old vibe for myself when I was a child doing this
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Do you do lots of painting when you were a kid?
Ooh, I wasn't expecting that question. I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did a little painting, but I cannot tell you when I last actually held a paintbrush. That's so sad to actually think that now. Like
Oh,
after this stream, if it wasn't for the fact that it was so late because time difference in London, I definitely would go out and maybe do some painting. But yeah, I'd love to kind of get back into it. I think it's quite therapeutic, no?
it is.
Yeah,
I actually,
step away from the screen.
other than on a wall, I agree. I haven't really done any canvas painting in a while, probably a couple
Mm.
years. It takes just as long as painting a wall, I promise. It's like if you,
Does it
it's
really?
not,
Yeah.
it's really no different. It's just as time
I love
consuming.
that. Okay. Well, we'll definitely take your word for that. I love that. Let us know in the chat if anyone's if the painters in the chat. Where this stream is definitely not exclusive to just only like illustrators or painters. By all means, all walks of creative life can be here. Yeah, folks in the chat, let us know. Do you paint? What do you do for your kind of relax in the creative space when
Yeah.
you're painting? I tell you what I do. Draw. I occasionally do some drawing doodles. I've got a Moleskine book for that, which is just people watching without being creepy. Just yeah, doodling and drawing. But nothing on a client based level. That's where my skill set sort of draws a line.
Noodles are
Um,
good. Help
yeah,
flex the creative muscles.
of course, it's healthy. Definitely healthy to do that. It's a good time to mention now if you have so but yeah, we're well and truly in the flow of this awesome stream. And for anyone who's just stepped in the room on YouTube or Behance, welcome first of all. And today we have excuse me, illustrator and muralist Sydney Prusso. And today we are in the process of transforming a client's wedding bouquet into an awesome floral mural design. So any questions you have, please do get those in the chat for Sydney, and I will share that directly with her. We've got a question from Hudson who said, I would not know the answer to this, so hopefully you would definitely will. But Hudson asks, nice flowers, what type are they?
Oh, I've got the names
Oh,
right
hibiscus.
here.
Ah, you
Brownie
do.
tulips, yellow
Mm,
hellebores, yarrow, and leaves.
nice. There
Yeah.
we go.
I actually just like when I saw the photo, I plugged it into reverse image search, like each flower, so that I could look at different angles of them.
I
So
like
if you ever
that.
need to know what a flower is, reverse
You've
image
got a whole
search.
archive on your hard drive just dedicated to.
Honestly.
I love it.
Also, I have a cousin who's a florist, and I'll just ask
Oh,
her
okay.
too.
Fair. That's interesting. Cool.
The odd skills that you need to know when you're
Of
a
course.
mural artist who
We've
does
got a
florals.
question from Paloma who's asked, and I know this is definitely from the mood board, but I'll let you answer that question. Who's asked, where is the mural going? Is it on a client's wall?
Yep,
So there we
right
go.
here. Murals go in
There we
this wall
go.
right here.
Nice. You mentioned before about so your approach when you deal with a client in that sense of giving them not many concepts to review, at least until when you're in a very much, finalized stage. How do you, and this is a question for maybe for those who are curious to know about this, but how do you deal with feedback and amends from clients? Because it's always a tricky one. And every designer or creative we have on Adobe Live has all different answers. So I'm excited to hear yours. But yeah, how do you kind of
Totally.
deal with that space of handling it?
Yeah. So with each project, I include a certain number of concepts and revisions. I usually include just the one finished mocked up concept that they can see, um, you know, pretty much exactly how it's going to look before any paint goes up. And then
Mm,
once they see that, and I've emailed that over and we've talked through it, um, then I'll offer 2 rounds of revisions, and those are included. And
cool.
anything beyond that's extra, but honestly, I think I've only ever had to use the second round of revisions like once, and it was for like a color tweak. So it's
Nice.
trust me, when you do the mock-up process, it really takes down those revisions.
I love that. Folks just like rigorously writing that down now.
Yeah,
Make sure I limit my
nobody wants
revisions.
nobody wants that many revisions. So
Mm, that's the yeah. I'm sure many creatives watching can relate in some capacity about the beauty. And this is across various disciplines right of the creative space.
of course,
Dealing with feedback and amends. And yeah, it definitely is a skill set in itself. But yeah, the more you work with them, the more they get to know you and your process, which is all good. We've got a question here, and this is from folks that are tuning on YouTube as well. There we go. We're covering all the bases today. Dave asked, it's so funny watching, start again. It's so fun watching you work in real time. How do you decide on your compositions when layering the flowers?
compositions. 3 is always a good like rule of thumb, rule of 3. I think it's always a good visual when you have 3 good focal points.
Mm,
I think that's always a good way to start. Other than that, it's just trial and error, like layering and layering and see what works.
cool. So three is a magic number. No
3
pun
is a good,
intended. Cool.
3 is a good one.
Yeah. Cool.
All right,
And what
so
programs do you so and obviously I know we're in the flow of Fresco. Is there any other programs that you
oh,
tend to work with a lot often within your line of work, or is Fresco your go-to?
yeah, so I'll also hop into Photoshop when I do the actual mock-ups.
Cool.
So now that I've got the basic kind of colors going on, I'm gonna
Mm,
hop in and do a little bit of detail work.
nice. Whilst you're in the flow of it, again, folks are they're loving everything you're doing, by the way. I can see all positive energy in the chat coming through and loads of questions as well, which is great. We always love to see them in Adobe Live. So thank you, my friends, for doing that. We've got a question from Bruce who said, Sydney, how often does a muralist need to find work to cover those expenses, for example, materials, or does the client ever supply these?
It's going to depend on how you run your business. So if you're a muralist, you most likely work for yourself, and that's all going to just be up to you. But
Mm,
personally, I like to just include everything up front. I don't itemize. I don't, yeah, I keep it as simple as possible. Here's the
cool.
cost. Um, man, where's my little thing? I keep it as simple as possible, basically. Um,
Nice.
and then in terms of charging, I charge by
Mm,
square foot. And for how often that I need to do a mural, I mean,
mm,
it's also going to be individual. It's going to depend on your expenses where you live. But um, I think when I see 2023, I was
mm.
doing maybe 2 murals a month. My goal is to do less than that because that was very hard on my body. So charging a little bit more, raising the prices, doing only one larger mural a month. Um,
Mm.
it's more of is my goal.
Because quite physical, no? I imagine like having to, yeah, that's there's me taking the easy route, being an editorial, just working on a screen, but then actually you've
It
got folks like you doing the hard work of
it is
creating
quite
beautiful
physical.
murals.
It is quite physical, which is it can be awesome. I think that's a huge reason I got into it to begin with is just like
Mm.
working with your hands is very rewarding. It's so fun. But if you're doing it all the time, it hurts. You have
Yeah,
to
no, of
take care of your
course.
body. Um, yeah.
Very good point.
That's why I would say don't this goes for I think any creative who has
Mm.
their own business. You don't usually put your eggs all in one basket. So I'm not just a mural artist. I also will do illustration. I'll license my stuff commercially. Um,
Cool.
Looking to get into the world of wallpapers, commercial wallpapers, that kind of thing. If anyone
Mm.
works for a wallpaper company, hit me up.
Shout out, I'm sure.
Shout out.
It's gonna have a wave of folks now just bombarding you on social, just like, yeah,
Yeah,
take my money. I want some cool stuff. Yeah, I love
let's
it.
go.
Very, very cool. And just to give you a reminder on the timing front, we are in that 45-minute mark now.
All
So there we
right.
go. Told you I wasn't joking when I mentioned that the things go quicker in the Adobe Live space, right?
They
When you're in
do.
the flow of it.
I'm like,
Fast
oh my
talking
God.
and there's a juggling act. But no, well, you're in a good place. Looking very good. Although I'm definitely getting motion sickness from the twisting, but
I'm so
I'm just
sorry.
fragile. So no, you're good for it. Folks are good. They're probably more stronger than I am. But yeah, it's it's all
I
good.
will.
Yeah, like a 360 of your illustrations. I love it.
I'm
We're
just
good for
always
it.
spiraling into my artwork. So it's like a free fall. Yeah.
So this is where your love of bungee jumping now comes into play. I get it now.
Well, it was
It's all
one
making
time.
sense.
It was one time.
It's
I
not a
don't think I'll
regular
do it
occurrence.
again.
Fair, fair.
Had to try it out.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What about you? Have you ever done any kind of adrenaline sports? What is it? Zip lining, anything like that?
Have I done any adrenaline sports? I'm loving these questions today. They're creative, but also slightly off piece. No, but I always say this. I feel not always, but probably the past year, the biggest, most scariest thing I've done, which I'm still doing, is becoming a dad. So
Oh, yeah.
that's perhaps the most for anyone who is like a new dad in the chat. Maybe they understand, or new parent, they understand. But it's yeah, that's perhaps the
That's
nerve
gotta be
wracking.
an
It's up
adrenaline
there.
sport.
It's an adrenaline, that's for sure. It keeps you on your toes, which my daughter definitely does. But yeah,
That's sweet.
but who knows? If I come to Tampa, I will definitely hit you up, Sydney, and be like, "Cool, should we do a zip line or bungee jump? See what we're saying."
I don't know if they have that in Tampa. I was actually
Is
in
it
New
not a thing?
Zealand when I did that.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a thing everywhere, but I was kind of
Nice.
like, it was the when in Rome thing. I was in Queenstown and I was
Fair.
like, well, everyone's doing it.
It'd be wrong not to, right? I get that. I can see Jack as well. Folks starting to share their experiences now of doing adrenaline stuff. You open the floodgates now,
Oh
Sydney,
no,
to folks.
everybody.
No, we're good for it. We're
That's
good for it.
awesome.
Folks are interacting. We've got Jackie said they went zip lining recently. There we go.
Oh,
Keep sharing your experiences, people. I'd love to hear it. What I would really love to see is someone said that they went bungee jumping or ziplining whilst listening to an Adobe Live podcast, or I'd be like, that's double brownie points for anyone who's, that's, yeah, dedication to the cause. I'm
Yeah.
here for it. Still waiting for that comment. We'll see if it's a thing. So I can see now, obviously going back to design, you're obviously in the process, right, of doing the sort of detailed. Is that right?
Yeah, we're just kind of getting into the detailed line work here.
Cool. Do you keep the thickness of the stroke the same, or do you maybe you mix it up because of the detail? What's your
Yeah, I mean, it's
method?
pretty much the same. I have it on a pressure here, so you can see when I push more, it gets a little bit bigger. So it's kind of varied throughout the whole thing. Um, it's not necessarily a mono line everywhere, as you say.
Nice. And I'm curious, have you got any tips for anyone who's maybe watching this and thinking, oh, I would love to maybe dabble in, or at least maybe pursue this as a career, being a mural designer, illustrator? Have you any tips for folks who are just starting out?
I would say if you haven't got any experience, your own home walls, your friends' businesses, even if you have an apartment, listen, you can paint over it. The landlord won't know. It's fine. Don't come at me, but
I was gonna say, folks are gonna come at you like, but Sydney told me it's okay to
yeah,
just randomly paint my next door neighbors.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, sometimes the landlords they'll keep the paint in the like, I don't know. They'll
It's like
have
they're
the paint
teasing you, right?
color.
It's like they want you to paint
Yeah,
their
and then
stuff.
you
I get
just
it.
paint over it. It's fine. It's just paint. It's just
There we
paint. And
go.
that's another thing is people will ask, what if you mess up? It's just paint. You paint over it.
Very good point.
No big deal.
Very good point. There's no magic eraser, but we can just paint over. There we go. It's
Yeah,
I like the positive spin on that you put there. It's makes
just
sense.
paint over it. It's all
Just paint
good.
over it. I want
With
that on a
that goes with
t-shirt. Just paint
life,
over.
with
I was gonna say that
everything.
feels
Get
like a
philosophical.
choose
Just paint
life.
over it.
Yeah. Start selling some t-shirts now, Sydney, with just paint over it and
Yeah.
watch it trend the internet.
That leads me into people a lot of times ask what kind of paint I use, and I just use regular house paint, which is,
Cool. Okay.
yeah, just anything from the hardware store. If it's an interior mural, use interior. If it's an exterior mural, use exterior.
Nice. And also, a quick, it'd be wild to not mention this, but obviously, with the beauty of Adobe tools and obviously everything always evolving and AI and everything coming into play, do you sort of dabble within a bit of AI within your type of work to make life a bit easier for yourself or more streamlined, or is that not your thing? What's
Yeah,
your method in that?
I've definitely dabbled with AI. I think it's fun to play with. Sometimes when you have, the idea in your head that's just too much of a scribble and you try to describe it to the computer, this is why computers are never going to replace us for sure. It never gets it.
I should hope
But
not.
it's always fun to see what they come up with and see if it's like, oh, like that's a different approach to it. I wouldn't necessarily do it that way, but no, I'll use it as a starting point sometimes especially if a client has a very, intricate description of what they want. I'll maybe plug it into AI first, just see, all right, let's see how the computer visualizes this, just for fun.
No, I get that. It's nice. I mean, I'm always curious to know how folks, utilize the sort of various Gen AI tools that we have in all the Adobe programs to kind of make life a bit easier or streamlined. I
Totally.
always say, I don't know if you find it, but when you're maybe just starting out as a creative, especially for example, in my case, like in university, I do sometimes wish this was out back then because it would have made life so much quicker and easier.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's a good thing because maybe you've learned a different way, right? So who knows? Who's to
You know what I
know?
use it mostly for is emails. Just like if I don't know,
Do you really?
yeah, if I don't know how to respond to someone or like if sometimes you gotta be firm. You have your own business. You have to maybe be firm with someone and you don't want to seem rude. I'll plug it into AI. Like, okay, reword this with
I love that.
kindness, but make sure you get the point across that
With
like, okay,
kindness.
you've reached your revisions. Like I'm gonna have to charge you more. That kind of thing.
You gotta soften it. See, that's the beauty of and I don't wanna go way too off piece of it, but like the beauty of we being in the UK, like we're very polite, right? As a Brit. So I feel like we fluff around a lot of hey, how's your weekend? How's the weather? And then we yeah, before we before we jump straight into it, we soften it a little
Yeah.
bit. But I've never actually dabbled in the AI when doing emails. That's interesting. Um,
What
yeah,
do you
I've just
use
been
AI
copy
for,
paste.
if you do?
It's tricky because not as I mean, possibly for editing. If I'm doing a bit of photoshopping, obviously I work in InDesign, that's my baby. But
Hmm.
so if I've got assets and we take it into Photoshop, I might do a bit of editing if I need to, or removing things. And the AI helps massively on that front. It skips out a lot of legwork and more streamlined. Um, so yeah. Sometimes I almost forget it's there, if that makes sense, because I will cut around something and I'm like, why am I cutting around when actually I can just tell it I don't want the background sky anymore or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot more beauty. So yeah, thank you to the gods of Adobe for doing that for us. We have got a question from the lovely Emily Pooling who's just joined us. Hey Emily, how you doing? Emily's asked, Sydney, this is so gorgeous with exclamation mark. There we go. And they've asked, have you always been a Fresco user or what convinced you to try it out?
My friend Ryan convinced me to try it out.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So he we done he asked me to come be on these streams a couple years ago for Behance and Adobe, trying out the Adobe Fresco I think when it first came out,
That's
maybe.
cool.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, and I also so with I use Fresco, but also use Procreate kind of interchangeably. They
Nice.
have different capabilities for each one, but I think for my style, both work pretty well.
Nice. For anyone listening, thinking, who's Ryan? So like, yeah, Ryan is very much in the Adobe. Yeah, I can see brief like Selby. Yeah, that's the Ryan. Which I actually
That's
didn't
the
know
one.
until literally before we came on this stream. I didn't know you guys knew each other, which is again
Hmm.
such a small world of creative space. So yeah, I'm sure our lovely folks would have seen Ryan on the Adobe Live space a lot. So yeah, it's all
Shout
connected in
out.
some. I love it. Yeah, shout out to Ryan. And in terms of inspiration, where do you go for your inspiration, Sydney? Are you scroll online? Are you let's stop going to the computer and just go into the you know community and see what's going on there? Where do you get inspiration from?
Yeah. Kind of everywhere. So a lot of, yeah, online sometimes it's really the only thing you can do. But just recently, another example would be at a dance class, and I was looking at the forms that the bodies were making in the class. And I
Mm.
then took one of those forms and drew the figure and combined it with a bird that I saw outside my window. So
With a what? A bird?
a
Or
bird, yeah. So I
okay.
combined a dancer with a heron. And
Oh, okay.
so, you don't have to go on some crazy fancy eat, pray, love trip. You can just, whatever
Okay.
soccer, or football, you like the
Thank
forms
you for mentioning
there.
that for our UK audience. If we didn't
Yep.
know, you've included us all in this. I love it, Sydney.
What do you
Thank you.
do? What's outside your window?
Mm.
Oh, there's stuff's everywhere. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to do some uh kind of traveling soon. I'll be going on my honeymoon, and
Oh,
I haven't traveled outside
congrats.
the US in a while. Thank you.
Yeah.
So hopefully get some fun inspo over in Spain soon.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife's from Spain, so yeah, I'm in Spain quite a lot. It's a
Oh,
beautiful
nice.
place. I guess that's the beauty when you travel as well, right? Of different countries, you get a feel for different people, culture, and that in itself can be inspiration, right? If you're creative
Absolutely.
to produce some cool work.
I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to travel for inspiration. And like
Mm,
I'm very excited to do that. But like I said, you don't need to be spending so much to
mm.
find inspiration.
Very good point. It's quite nice to sort of see this design sort of coming to fruition from like every step from the beginning. So
I
it's
know. Gotta take a moment,
very
zoom
cool.
out. Okay. I always have to remind myself.
And we're literally bang on at the hour mark, actually. So there we go. I'm doing my job properly as a host. I'm giving you timing slots. Look at me go. So yeah, we're an
Okay.
hour exactly into the stream. So that means, yeah, we've got about
All right.
another 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes or so. For anyone in the chat, please do get those remaining comments in the chat.
That means I'm going to try to keep this pretty simple today. We're not going to get too bogged into the details. Going to speed it up a little bit. Normally, I would add a little bit more dark. So like I had here, all this dark here. Lawnmower outside.
I didn't realize that until you mentioned it. Now,
Now you hear it.
well, now I can hear his lawnmower. No, you're good for it.
But yeah, I normally have a little bit more dark going on. But yeah, I'm gonna, for the sake of time, keep it a little bit more minimal.
Sorry, I feel like a monster for giving you a time slot there, like say in the hour mark. I feel like a headmaster of school.
No.
Just yeah, so that you can
You
get
gotta keep
all
me on
the creative juices that you can what you want to get in a stream. So there we go.
Gotta keep me on the right path. Just means I might make you dizzy again.
Do you know what's crazy? I was actually just thinking that, but I don't think I've had a stream where there's been so much rotation. But again, that's what makes it even more fun, right? It's the rotation. It's hosting a mural designer. The thrill of everything is just I don't know. I want to sleep tonight. Yeah, it's awesome.
You just gotta be careful at the pub later. You're just gonna be like, oh, am I still rotating?
You just telling everyone my secrets there, Sydney. Yeah. You mean the library? That's what you meant to say.
The library. Yes.
The library, which opens at 8 p.m. in the UK.
Of course.
Yeah, there we go.
That's my favorite thing to do at 8 p.m. I don't know about you.
It's up there. It's up there. In terms of projects now, so is anything, I mean, perhaps it is maybe top secret NDA, and if it is, then obviously keep it sealed, but is anything that you're working on now that is exciting for you or that you can mention?
I've actually taken a break right now.
Yeah.
So I don't have any projects that I'm taking on really until January. So taking a nice little break.
That's a solid break, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. I've never done anything like this, and it's very odd for me to not to take a break from work. I've like never done it. So, but I think it'll be good. I'm basically just focusing on personal work.
Sure. That's very cool. I mean, sometimes you need that, right? Like that space, but also the beauty of working for yourself is that you can do that. You can just take that and not feel guilty, right? Yeah, I can relate in terms of taking a break and then sometimes just not, wanting to check your emails or maybe just like a quick, I don't know, LinkedIn feed or whatever. Just yeah.
So I'm still responding to emails, but yeah, just basically saying to everyone, I'm not taking on any new projects until next year, which is just trying to focus on building out my portfolio, getting more into the world of, so it's not necessarily, you might hear that and think like, oh yes, so you're just like not going to make money for the next 5 months.
Go to the beach, chill out.
Yeah, just chill out. So it's like ooh, get some water. Yes and no. So there's this thing called licensing. And you can, if companies want to use your work, you can make royalties off of your existing work. And that's always a great supplemental income to have for artists.
Very cool.
And then this year was just lucky. I had front-loaded the year with a lot of really big fun projects. So just kind of the majority of the money got made in the beginning of the year. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do with the rest of my year? I'm going to focus on licensing.
I like that. I like that. You set
so
your own
again,
terms
if anyone's out there wanting to license some of my work, let's go.
There's been a few shout outs today. I love it. It's this is all about your stream, so you do what you would like to do on the stream. Obviously, we keep it PG, but still, it's I love that. It's Yeah, for anyone's in chat. So, and then again, like I said, my job is to obviously check the chat, and it's been popping off really good. So, folks are loving what they're seeing from you, Sydney, today.
Awesome.
It's funny, you got me thinking. We were just before we came on the stream, we were saying about this idea of making sure your website and also your social media presence is always maintained, and that in itself is a bit of a job. No, I don't know. How do you find? Obviously, you're gonna have a bit of a break now. Are you still on social media actively, or again, is that more of a social detox? How do you find that?
Yeah, I'm still on social media. I usually try to post like 2 to 3 times a week,
Mm,
maybe more, but I'm more on like the once a week right now. It'll probably taper off here and there to nothing, but it's all right. You can always come back.
exactly, it'll still be there. Yeah, there's a lot of. I think as well. I don't know if you can relate to this, but when you are a freelancer, or you work for yourself or business, there is that added pressure, right? Of you need to keep social media and keep it maintained so that folks can know what's going on and what you're working on. So yeah, it can be a bit of a tricky one
Yeah.
to get the balance right.
Well, and you do to a degree.
Mm,
If you want the clients to keep coming in, like the consistency is really important there.
mm,
Um, so can't understate that, but like I said,
mm.
right now I'm in kind of the middle, the in between. So it's not super important for me right now to make sure
Okay.
I'm super posting all the time every day.
Mm. No,
But
that's
the
healthy.
consistency is really good if you're trying to grow on Instagram, trying to get clients. Yeah, whatever's consistency is going to work for you. So if that's once a week,
Mm,
commit to once a week.
mm. Thank you for sharing those little gems with us. I love it.
Totally.
We're gonna have to get you to come back on Adobe Live again like a year from now, so then we can sort of check out what you've been up to in that sort of gap period,
Yeah.
and to see your personal work.
Hey,
Maybe
I'm
even sooner
excited
than that. Who
to,
knows? But yeah, it'd be cool to know.
I want to peek into the future too. Let's go.
No, surely you want it to be a surprise, Sydney. Surely.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, Emily in the chat, and yeah, she can also relate as well. Keeping up with social and portfolio, yes, that's so true. It's difficult.
Yeah, nobody go look at my website right now.
Yeah, I mean
It's
that's what we're all definitely gonna do right now after the stream, of course, because we got to be watching the stream.
it's not updated.
Yeah, the portfolio is always a tricky one because you're forever, not forever, but there's always a thing that you could be polishing, right, or you could be editing and doing. It's. I don't know if you find the same thing for yourself, but there's always work to be done,
Yep,
potentially.
yep.
Mm.
And like you always see someone's website that you're like, oh, that website's so nice. I need to do something different with mine, or there's
I
always
mean, I
something.
got that vibe when I went on your website, Sydney, before this stream. And I was like,
Oh,
I need
no
to sort
way.
my website out now because
No way.
Sydney's killing it right now, absolutely destroying it. No, but your site is actually really beautiful. And I know we'll put links in the chat anyway, so folks can obviously not leave the stream, but watch it off or go to your website obviously after the stream. So I'm sure folks will browse there.
Totally. But if you want to check out more of my recent work, yes, like I said, I gotta update the site. So go on the gram, go on the Instagram.
Go on the gram. There we go. You're
That there
sport for
you can see
choices, my friends.
the heron piece I was talking about. It's kind of hard to describe the
Mm.
morphing of a dancing lady and a heron, but you can see what I'm talking about over there.
Nice. Um, we got yeah, Emily's awesome comment. I always label mine as semi-recent portfolio.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost ready, but just not quite. It's yeah, it's pending.
Yep.
It's pending.
Or I'll put the month like just, February 2024 portfolio, and then I can see like, oh no, I have not updated it since then.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't know if you find it like during maybe the sort of period where we were all in lockdown and whatnot. I think a lot of folks, including myself, had time to really refine portfolio websites and bits and bobs. Yeah, sometimes you need that almost like just space that's dedicated just to do it. Maybe it's a weekend or it's after work or whatever you do. Yeah, but it's always healthy to have some time cut out for updating the portfolio.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, we've got folks now sharing their worries about not updating their portfolios. We've created a trend.
Everyone gets it.
Everyone gets it
Everyone.
though. I love that. We're all in the same boat here. We've got Paloma who said, "Yeah, my portfolio needs updating too, and I have to hurry because I'm going to a conference next week." Ah, I mean that's an incentive then, though, because then I almost feel like sometimes we need that incentive as creatives to really get
Totally.
going. So make it happen, Paloma. We believe in you. You got this. Have a good conference too. And the message for you, Sydney, we've got about an extra 15 minutes until the clock strikes. But
Okay.
yeah. And that's also a nice reminder for those in the chat. Any last minute comments for Sydney, please do get them in.
All right. That means I'm gonna pop over and do some mocking up here in a sec. But just need to finish this center part and then we'll pop over. Man, this goes so fast.
I
I
told
didn't get
you,
the
I
half the
I
details
wasn't
I wanted
lying.
to go.
It's
That's all
looking good
right.
though. It's looking good.
Okay, just a couple more in the center here, and then we'll pop on over.
Yeah. It's all good. You when you're ready. I mean, it's up to me. I'll give you another hour and a half, but I don't make the rules, unfortunately. Not
No,
that kind of rule. So there we go.
having a timer is always good, honestly. It's having that challenge has helped me push my work, honestly, sometimes because I will have
Mm,
to modify to whatever the time is because that's just what it is.
mm.
And I don't know, sometimes it looks better when you get more like free with it because you're speeding through it.
And that's also a bit of discipline though as well, because I feel like in theory that sounds for myself that's good, but then if I see the time is gone and I'm in the real flux of like finishing something up, I can't imagine me stopping that to then move on to the next. Maybe it's self-control, perhaps. I don't know, which I need to work on. But yeah, it's I do love the method you've adopted though, because I feel like you can get way more stuff done and much more streamlined. So
A
yeah,
timer, you mean, or
yeah, just basically a timer if you're on a project and you're working on things, so you know to then move on to the next.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's very cool what you do.
All right. We're just gonna fill the center in and call it for now.
Nice. I've got to read this comment of the day from Emily for anyone who's on Behance, YouTube, but not on Behance, so they can't see it. But yeah, Emily said we should do a stream of designers just updating their portfolios. There we go. I mean, you
We're
might
just
see
a
the
group.
yeah, you might see like behind the scenes of things that people don't necessarily want to see, but maybe they're comfortable with it. Who knows? There we go. We'll pitch
Uh,
it. We'll pitch it, Emily. But yeah, back to your stream, Sydney. Let's talk us through what we're looking at now.
yeah, so now I'm just gonna pop on over to my computer screen. In a couple minutes, I just gotta export this piece.
Yeah, no
I'm
props.
going to airdrop it. Let's see. Do I have my Bluetooth on?
I think we've done pretty well with technology today. Usually something always goes a little bit flaky or wrong when it comes to, I mean, these are the joys of doing a live stream, right? So
Totally.
we've had the lawnmower, but now we're good for it now. I think the airdrop will be good.
Okay. So when we're ready, I'm gonna pop my screen on to Photoshop. Let's see.
Whilst that's in the flow of doing that, I can see folks are just tuning in now. So, firstly, hello, welcome. Where have you been? But you can always rewatch, so that's all good. And today we have the wonderful illustrator and muralist designer, Sydney Prusso. And today we're transforming a client's wedding bouquet into an awesome floral mural design. So, we're about to do a little mock up just before we shut up shop. So, any questions, please do get those in the chat for the lovely Sydney.
Okay.
Cool. In Photoshop.
We can see my Photoshop then.
Indeed, we can.
Airdrop my piece.
Yeah. We've got a question actually whilst you're in the flow of that, and I think it was a previous one, but someone's mentioned it, so I feel like folks need to want to know about it. Licensing, you mentioned, do you have like a licensing company that you tend to work with or
No,
in that
I
space?
don't. It's
Yeah.
um nothing specific.
Okay.
Pitch my work to a lot of wallpaper license or wallpaper commercial wallpaper companies, and then
Cool.
license out to them or home goods.
Nice. There
So
we
you can
go,
see
Bruce. Question's
here,
been answered.
I've got this set out. So what I'm going to do is just lower the opacity and then go in with a mask and
Mhm.
kind of just get the details out of the way.
Yeah, there's something quite fun about when you do a mock-up across any discipline that you do. It's a nice sort of see it in situ in context, which makes it more real.
Oh yeah, totally. So let's see. For the sake of time again, I'm just going to kind of loosely do it.
And yeah, what we'll do is maybe in the next 3, 4 minutes, we'll do a nice little wrap up for anyone. Well, a wrap up today actually of our stream. And then
Totally.
of course it'd be nice to end on a way how folks can know about yourself as well. Anything you want to plug, social media, then it's the floor is yours. Floor is yours. The screen is yours. There we go. If that's we're gonna translate that. There we go. From
Works for
Kieron.
me. All right. There we go. And so here's what it
Nice.
would kind of look like on the wall. And now what
Okay.
I do is I'll play with the different blending modes. So,
Oh yeah.
you can see or the client can see what it's going to look with the lighting in that space a little bit easier. And there's
Mm,
no like sometimes overlay is perfect. Sometimes, soft light, great. It just depends on the colors. So right now, if I were going to have this color background and just the pink
mm.
design, this would be a great one. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it as just slightly less opacity. And then you've got your mock-up here.
Nice. That's a serious mural on my bedroom wall, which I love. Looking very
Yeah.
good. Have you got a favorite plant, by the way? I've just got to put it out there. Is there a particular one that like it sticks out to you that you think, oh, that's very cool?
Probably, gosh, to draw, uh,
Mm.
I don't know, peonies or, I mean, tulips. This one was really fun to draw.
Okay.
I was surprised. I thought the tulips would be a little bit more structured, but I like
Mm.
the flowers with very ruffly edges. Those are fun.
Okay. Cool. I can dig it. Nice. So, I mean, perhaps maybe we could do a. I mean, we've got 6 minutes. There we go. I was
All
going to say
right.
5, but I want to be generous and add an extra minute on top because I have that power a little bit.
Yeah,
Maybe we could do a little recap of today in the stream, what we've done from the very beginning to the end, and then of course how folks can know about you on your socials.
totally. Yeah, so um, we had this piece that we were making based off of, let's see, the, I'll airdrop the mood board so you can see it.
Nice. Yeah, that's the beauties of jumping between different devices. But yeah, you've done it smoothly, which is all good.
There we go. So here's our mood board that
Nice.
we show the client. Um, Here's their wedding bouquet inspiration. Over here is just the colors that I suggest in order to lean into their um,
Hmm.
bedroom color palette. Um, some of my previous work that they liked that they wanted it also inspired from, and just a couple other color inspiration. And then on the mood board, I always have the project goal, which here was to kind of immortalize the client's wedding bouquet, um, which, I'd love to do more of that in the future too. Um,
Hmm.
and then we have our design here. And since we have a minute, I can also play around with some shadows.
Yeah, please
So what
do.
I'll do is I'll grab the brush tool, take the hardness down and bring it up pretty big.
Because I'm not a monster, Sydney, as well. I'll give you an extra 2 minutes for this part as well, so you got more time to finish this bit, and then we'll and then we'll have like a minute to do your wrap up social.
No, this will be
So,
quick.
oh no, you're
Just a
good for it. You're good.
quick.
You are good for it.
So this looks crazy at first, but just bear with me.
Method to the madness. It's all good.
There. Helps a little bit grounding the piece into the space a little bit.
So it's dark on the edges, right? And then a much lighter in the middle. Okay.
Yeah, because we have the lamp here, it's projecting light into the center of the room. So it just, you can see it looks a little bit superimposed, and then that just helps it a little bit. Normally I'd spend a little bit more time fine-tuning, making sure it looks more blended into the space, but for the sake of time today,
of course. And that's the beauty, right? I feel like as designers, we can, I hate to use the word cheat it because that's not a nice word, but just do it quick enough that maybe the client can understand it or do it. Because I mean, sometimes clients might not necessarily factor in that we've done shading, right? But let's be honest, maybe if it is done and everything, it feels a bit more real maybe to when folks do see it. So yeah, we appreciate a swift dark and shadow any day of the week. And so how can folks sort of find out about you, Sydney? Is there anything you want to plug, anything social, anything you want to go on the website, anything you want to show us before we do a little wrap up?
Definitely pop on over to my Instagram. It's just my name at Sydney Prusso, and would love to see you there.
There we go. Short and sweet. No messing around. And I can see, by the way, I mean, I feel like I haven't even covered the surface of all of the lovely comments that be coming through, but I can start with a few that's here. So we've got Keys who said this looks beautiful. Paloma said this came out so nice, and Robert saying this looks great. So yeah,
thanks,
folks
guys.
have really enjoyed seeing your design process. Is there anything that you want to maybe flag or talk about before we shut up shop? Anything you want to share with us beforehand, or you're in a good place?
No, yeah, this is all great.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I think it's that time to do a nice closure now. So again, Sydney, thank you so much for joining us on Adobe Live. Have you had a good time?
Yes, totally. Thank you for having me.
Nice. It's been a blast. And I can see we've got all of your links in the chat. So folks will no doubt be checking you out and following, and yeah, basically seeing what you're being up to work-wise. And of course, a massive thank you to everyone who has joined us on the stream, YouTube, Behance, all the comments. It has been awesome as always. So up next, stay tuned because we have an Adobe Spotlight. And in today's session, we have Illustrator Doc Read. So stay around for that because it's going to be an awesome one. So on that note, Sydney, thank you again for joining me today on the stream. Hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll see you all very soon, folks. So take care. Ciao.
Bye.